Welcome back to the channel, guys. In this video, I'm looking at the Astrotec Vesna single dynamic driver earphone. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Did you know that in Russia, Poland, the Ukraine, and Belarus, Vesna is the actual word for spring? Now, this is an ultra budget IEM. It costs around $20. It is single dynamic driver. And there's a rather unusual inclusion in the box, which is this. I don't think I've ever seen, well, I definitely have never seen an IEM come with one of these before. Now, for you Android users out there, this is a USB-C to 3.5mm dongle or adapter, so you can plug this straight into your phone and you are good to go. Inside the box, you also get this little canvas sort of type carrying pouch and a few standard silicone ear tips. But let's have a look at the Astrotec Vesna now, and there it is. And first of all, you'll see it does have a fixed cable. That's not really a big deal, especially for something in this price range. And then you've got your typical sort of old school bullet shaped IEMs here with a nice bit of teal back faceplate there. So it's a pretty handsome little device, nice and compact, very comfortable of course. Those are the stock ear tips. You've got your 3.5mm plug, and that about wraps it up in terms of physicality. So we're going to get right into it today. The Vesna, how does it sound? Well, let me tell you, it is loosely based on the Harman target response, and but it takes a slightly more neutral approach than that. Compared to the Harman curve, the Vesna here has less emphasis on the bass and less upper mid-range lift, along with that classic sort of Harman-ish rolled off upper treble. Now, although the impedance is only 30 ohms and it has a sensitivity of 102 dB, this actually require a little bit more power than your average IEM. Yes, you can drive it with a phone. You'll do a little bit better with a dongle like this, and you'll do even better with, I don't have it on hand, a proper dongle DAC. But it does like power. Don't be afraid to give this a bit of power if you've got it. So now let's talk about the sound. Now, starting off with the bass. The bass is lightly boosted and it's just subtly north of neutral. The transition from the sub bass to the mid bass is reasonably linear, so it sounds fairly powerful and confident. Slightly blunted leading edges and a natural decay give the bass fullness while still being demure in nature. The 6mm micro driver is well controlled and agile, so it's pretty speedy little IEM. It doesn't have any trouble keeping up with fast-paced music. And overall, I find the quality of the bass quite pleasing. But it's definitely not a bass head IEM. Now into the mid-range, and the mid-range has got a fairly natural organic tone, and it's resolving yet easygoing at the same time. There's no graininess, nor is there any harshness in the upper mid-range bands. It isn't the most detailed sound, but the instrument separation is good, and the quality of the LCP driver is apparent in its tone. The lower mids are full-bodied, but they're uncolored. Vocal notes have good size and density, giving them an organic, natural quality. Vocals aren't too upfront, but they sound cozy and reassuring, and a 5 kHz dip makes instruments and voices slightly warmer and is partly responsible for the smoothness in the mid-range. And finally, moving on to the treble. An emphasis on the lower treble provides definition and clarity. The upper treble is rolled off, ensuring a smooth, non-fatiguing experience. As a result, it's not an especially precise treble, but one that is free of sibilance and sharpness. Detail retrieval is good, but there's not much air and sparkle due to the warmer tone of the treble. Still, thanks to the laid-back nature of the treble, Vesna's high frequencies maintain a fairly accurate timbre. Now, in terms of soundstage and technicalities, the soundstage is kind of average in dimensions. It has a fairly rounded shape, so it's not very wide. It does have a bit of depth though. It's got a nice natural shape to it. While it's not the widest, it does transition smoothly from the sides to the front, so instrument separation is pretty good thanks to the driver's nimbleness and speed, which aids in its overall resolution. And in terms of imaging, it's decent, and Vesna is reasonably apt at instrument placement, but it's not super precise as you would expect for something in this price range. Now let's jump into a couple of quick comparisons, and I'll start with the Moondrop Quarks here. Now the Quarks is a $13 IEM, so this is an ultra budget one, although there are cheaper ones out there, but $13, that's price of a couple of Happy Meals. And you can see it's a bit smaller physically than the Vesna, maybe not as durable. Perhaps it doesn't have a strain relief on the cable there, which might be a concern. But anyway, onto the sound, and the Quarks has less mid-bass punch and a leaner lower mid-range. Now the Quarks leaner lower frequencies combined with a fairly significant upper mid-range peak make it a little bit shouty at higher volumes. The Vesna's mid-range sounds a bit brighter and more vibrant. However, you know, you could argue that the Quarks, I should say, has a more accurate mid-range tone just by a little bit. Quarks has less core treble presence, giving it a somewhat more relaxed presentation and less detail retrieval. Both IEMs have a rolled off upper treble that stifles upper harmonics and keeps airiness at a minimum. And the other one that I've got here is the current reigning ultra budget champion, the CCA CRA. Now this is another single dynamic driver IEM. All three of these IEMs are single dynamic drivers. CRA has more sub-bass emphasis, but it has less bass quantity overall than the Vesna. The Vesna's bass notes are thicker and are delivered with more impact. CRA has a leaner, more spacious mid-range. Vesna, in comparison, has more mid-range warmth, but not as much instrument separation or clarity. Vocals have a fuller, darker tone on the Vesna, but are less articulate than the CRA. CRA has greater treble extension and a more forward upper treble. This gives it extra clarity, detail, and airiness compared to the warmer Vesna. The CCA has a wider soundstage as well and more precise imaging. So guys, that is the Astrotec Vesna. Now, would I recommend this IEM? You know what? I think it is a pretty solid IEM for the price, and I think it can compete with pretty much everything in its price range. I don't know if I probably would still choose the CRA over it, but you know, if you're not a fan of over-ear IEMs or earphones, this old school shape is actually really fuss-free and nice and comfortable, and I actually like going back to this form factor every now and then. But overall, in terms of pure sound, I still slightly prefer the CRA, but that's my personal preference. Vesna, good earphone, good price. That's it for this video, guys. If you liked it, give it a like, Parfam audiophile style. And if you want to see more stuff like this in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you later.